Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and the LEGO Award season is continuing. This is the show where we count down the best of the best that LEGO had to offer this year in 2023. Last time we took a look at the top 10 best non-licensed minifigures of the year, and this time we're taking a look at the top 10 best licensed minifigures that came out in 2023. These include minifigures from Star Wars, Marvel, DC, anything that is an external license that LEGO is producing as a minifigure is included in this list, and much like the last one, this was a really hard one to make, so I am super curious to hear your thoughts. What are your favorite minifigures that came from licensed themes that LEGO released this year? And I'm super curious if yours match up with my favorites. And now, without further ado, let's jump right in to number 10. Okay, so coming in at number 10, we have Loki, who appeared this year in January for the Avengers Quinjet, and later in the fall for the Avengers Tower set, the massive $500 one. This version of Loki is based off of his appearance in the very first Avengers movie, and while the original minifigure we got in 2012 was honestly not the most interesting, with just a plain dark gray torso as well as a face that didn't have a lot of character to it, this is absolutely a fantastic upgrade, and honestly, especially in a year full of Marvel minifigures which weren't necessarily the best versions of the characters we could have been getting, this is an absolutely phenomenal minifigure and one that absolutely fits to get in 2023, especially when Loki Series 2 was so good. Now, the version of this character is, again, from the first Avengers movie, so it does have a full-on gunmetal gray torso and legs, but my favorite thing about this minifigure is the expression. That smiling facial expression absolutely screams Loki to me. It is just so perfect for the character itself, and if you're curious, here's what the back of the torso looks like. Nothing super crazy going on with the print, but despite its simplicity, it is really nice, and I feel like this really does capture the look and feel of Tom Hiddleston playing the iconic villain. Now, what's really cool is we actually do get an alternate version of the character in both sets. They come with the Loki hairpiece introduced in last year's collectible minifigure series, and this alternate head is meant to depict him when he actually has the kind of silencer on him where he can't actually speak at the end of the movie as he's being carted off to jail, and I feel like once again this does really nicely depict the character. You have a very excellently molded hair sculpt that comes with the figure itself, as well as a very unique and dynamic facial expression that overall makes this one of the best minifigures that is licensed of the year, despite appearing in pretty much just a standard retail set. Marvel honestly had knocked it out of the park with this figure. I'm really happy with the overall design of it, and I think it's safe to say it's probably the best version of Loki we've ever gotten, even better than the TVA version we got last year. And so, that's why this is on the list, and I think it's now time to move on to number 9. Alright, so coming in at number 9, we have a minifigure from the Disney Series 3 collectible minifig series. This is Ernesto de la Cruz from Coco. Now, I will admit my bias here. Coco is probably my favorite Disney Pixar movie, so when I saw that we were actually getting minifigures based off of that film, I was beyond excited. But honestly, I feel like this minifigure truly worked to deserve his spot on the list just due to the incredible striking visual design and the amount of detail packed into the figure itself. I feel like this minifigure definitely does owe a lot of his design cues and language and succeeds so well because the original design from the movie was a very bold and striking design. Having something that is almost a black and white minifigure with just pure white, black, and silver makes it a very striking figure to behold, and it definitely is helped by the fact that it is printing on the sides of the arms and the legs, something we've come to expect from many of the collectible minifig series. The guitar is the perfect accessory to go with him, intricately detailed with the skeleton detailing up at the top there, which just looks absolutely fantastic, and I really love the new dual molded hairpiece and hat combo that has been created for the character itself. I feel like it really captures the essence of the character, and you can even see some detail on the top of the hat, which definitely wasn't necessary, but really nice that they included it. Ernesto does have two different faces. One of them is a little bit more villainous than the other, so I really do like how they did capture that villainous look of the character in that facial expression right there. And overall, I just feel like this is one of the best designs of a minifigure that we've gotten this year. It's very clean, it's very nice, and yes, it does owe a lot of that due to the very clean and elegant design of the character in the movie, but I just really love just how well produced this figure is, where every single silver detail shines and reflects
reflects the light, you have metallic detailing infused into the character itself, and right down to the arms and legs, you can really see that this is one of the most intricately designed characters ever. They could have gone a little bit simpler with the printing and made it a little bit more cartoonish, but instead they really maxed out on all of the detail for this figure, and it really shows. I feel like they did a really great job capturing the character's likeness, and that's why this figure belongs on this list. Still, it's maybe not the most interesting figure design-wise. It is, after all, just a standard minifigure that mostly just uses 3 different colors, which is why it's a little lower on the list, but one that I really do love the design for. And now let's move on to number 8. And coming in for our next character, we have yet another character from Disney, and this one is a lot more classic, because this is Snow White from the Disney Castle remake. Now, Snow White is one of the most iconic characters in pop culture and in fiction in total, and I feel that this is one of the best depictions of the character we could have ever gotten from LEGO. In fact, it was pretty shocking to me to see that we had actually never gotten a minifigure of Snow White before this. Previously, she had only appeared in mini doll format, and finally getting her as a minifigure just in time for the terrifying soulless CGI remake of the movie with Rachel Zegler was really the perfect timing. Jokes aside, this is a really great looking version of the classic Snow White character in the original Disney animation, which is really fantastic looking, and I really love how LEGO pretty much went all out with the details of this minifigure, despite it only appearing in a standard retail set. The arms are dual molded with printing on the sides of the arms, and even the skirt is printed on the front with a custom new cut of a white cloth element making up the back of the figure's face. This is just a really nice and well-produced character that admittedly is a little bit on the simpler side, at least where the torso detailing comes in, but it definitely is supposed to be like that. Snow White is a pretty simply designed character, and they really kept it true to the animation itself. One of the things I really like is the hairpiece, where you can actually see the different design of the hairpiece being very nice and rubberized here, so it is a nice little rubberized piece with a red bow at the front, and she does have an alternate expression with her eyes closed like this, like she's taken a bite of the poisoned apple, which is really perfect and fantastic, and I really like how they were able to factor that into the minifigure itself. Overall, while the design is a little bit on the simpler side, I feel like this is something that definitely has a very classic look and feel to it. Really, the only downside to the figure is that unfortunately, the light yellow printing on the blue torso is just not quite the right color. You can clearly see how it isn't quite right on the way the torso is printed, especially on the back there, and it would have been nice to get some printing on the back of the skirt, especially because we know LEGO can do that as a print, but other than those minor flaws, I feel like this is a really nicely produced character, and in a year celebrating 100 years of Disney, this figure really stood out amongst the rest. But now it's time to move on to number 7. And coming in at number 7, we have, and this feels weird to say, but another Disney-owned character. This is Wolverine. Now, Wolverine is one of the most iconic character designs throughout all of comic books history, and this particular version may be one of his most iconic looks yet, featured from the X-Men animated TV series that is much beloved by fans. Now, Wolverine comes in the Marvel Collectible Minifigure Series 2 list, which obviously, by no surprise, was absolutely jam-packed full of fan favorites and excellently detailed minifigures, and this version of Wolverine even came with an excellent hairpiece to capture the look and feel of the character with the mask off. Now, Wolverine as a minifigure is a really nice one to get, especially because it's an outfit that fans have been clamoring for years now from LEGO. We have gotten a few classic comics Wolverines before, but this is the first time that one has been explicitly made off of the animated TV series, and I really love just how much detail they were able to pack into the figure as a whole. Despite the mask not being new, it actually is just the older piece that has been reused from previous X-Men sets from years past. The rest of the minifigure is completely overhauled, with printing on the sides of the arms, dual molded legs, printing on the sides of those legs, and even some excellent accessories of the Sentinel heads being broken off. Overall, this is absolutely a triumph of a minifigure and is pretty much the flagship minifigure from the Marvel Collectible Minifig Series 2 sets, which makes total sense because this is one of the most iconic Marvel characters ever. For me, this is really cool to finally get a fully detailed Wolverine. I feel like the figure is incredibly well produced. There is a very good reason as to why it has been on the top of many people's wish lists for the Marvel Series 2 figures, and I feel like it's only really topped by one other figure on this list when it comes to licensed Marvel minifigures, and we're about to take a look at that very soon. But now, let's move on to number 6. 2023 marked the triumphant return of LEGO Indiana Jones to the LEGO portfolio, and who knows whether or not we'll ever see any more Indiana Jones sets, but out of the 3 that were released, we all got a fantastically produced LEGO Indiana Jones minifigure for 2023 produced among them, which is why I feel like this figure deserves its spot as number 6 on our list. As you can see, Indy has been updated for completely new details. The trademark fedora is now a brand new dual molded piece with the dark brown hair sticking out from underneath the hat. He still has his same old whip, same old messenger bag, but with completely new details factored into the torso and legs, bring this minifigure to 2023 standards, which is really fantastic to see. Overall, this is a really well-produced minifigure, and the particular one I've chosen to include on this list is the version from the $150 Big Temple set, which I feel like is the definitive version of Indiana Jones, but I feel like really any of the Indy figures from any of the other characters from the other sets truly just feel like they deserve a place on this list, and they're all kind of interchangeable. This to me just felt like the most iconic outfit to include, with the trademark expression of the smirk and the messenger bag, and of course, that button-up shirt. And one of my favorite things about this figure is he even has an alternate expression with the cobwebs stuck in his face, which is a really funny expression to get for the character, and one that really does match up very nicely with the movie itself. Overall, it was a great return to form for LEGO Indiana Jones to make its way back to the LEGO portfolio for this year, and that's why I feel like this minifigure deserved a spot on this list, because it is a very well-produced character. It is one of the best produced ones that LEGO has done for replicating an actor's license into LEGO format. Harrison Ford as a minifigure looks absolutely fantastic here, and overall, I'm a big fan of the way they were able to recreate LEGO Indiana Jones for the modern era in 2023. There's not much to dislike about the figure other than, yes, it is a little bit plain compared to some of the other figures on the list. No printing or anything on the sides of the arms and legs, but he really didn't need it. So overall, I feel like this is a really good representation of the actor's license, and now we can move on to number 5. Alright, so coming in at number 5, we have what may be actually a pretty controversial choice. Some of you will undoubtedly say it should rank a lot higher, while others should say it should rank a lot lower or not even be on the list at all. And that is Captain Rex, and that's why I kind of put this one square in the middle. Now, Captain Rex is exclusive to the Ultimate Collector Series Venator, which is a massive $700 UCS ship from Star Wars, one of the biggest and best sets that LEGO put out this year, and in it came the much anticipated Captain Rex in his Phase 2 armor. The last time that we got Phase 2 Captain Rex was in 2013 with a bark speeder and sidecar, and that minifigure now retails for over $100. So there was a lot of hype leading up to the release of this minifigure, and the question is, does it live up to the hype? And the answer is, kind of. You see, the thing about Captain Rex is that by all means, this is almost an upgrade in pretty much every single way but one. The minifigure integrates arm printing, which is really fantastic. The cloth pauldron looks amazing. I love the way the arm prints look as well. They really do add a lot of extra detail to the minifigure itself, and it actually even received a custom head, depicting Captain Rex from the final few episodes of the Clone Wars, or I guess Commander Rex as he was called at that point, with a bandage above his head, showcasing that he had removed his inhibitor chip. That is a really nice and special additional level of detail that I really love that they were able to factor into this minifigure. But unfortunately, there was one big compromise. This minifigure, unlike the previous version, does not include a cloth comma around the legs. In fact, the sides of the legs are not even printed like the arms, meaning that the black comma just kind of barely is printed on the side and then awkwardly cuts off. Now, would it have cost LEGO that much extra to include this simple cloth piece? No, but the answer that LEGO gave when I actually interviewed the LEGO designers behind the set that this came in earlier in September for Fan Media Days was pretty interesting. They said that they wanted to keep all of the clones pretty much a standard style, so that both kids and adults could use them for whatever they want, and kids in particular could play with them in any sort of scenario. That meant that giving Captain Rex a comma meant that they would probably have to give it to someone like Commander Fox, who just appeared in the recent gunship, or other clone captains or commanders in the future, and unfortunately, due to market testing, they found that kids really don't like this. They don't like putting it on. It's really hard to put on. Admittedly, yes, it is really hard to put on, and It's also hard to make minifigures sit down in cockpits of spaceships with a comma on. That is definitely true. And because of that, the LEGO Star Wars design team decided to homogenize the design of all the clones and keep the comma off. Now, in my opinion, I feel like by that logic, they also should have arm printed every clone, because if you're going to keep it consistent, might as well do arm printing on everything, which I know is not reasonable to ask, but I just guess by that logic, I would have said that, well, maybe you should have arm printed the clones too. But also by that logic, I do want to note that I feel that for the UCS Venator, the argument could be made that an exception could have been made because it is such a special collector-style set. It is mostly going to be bought, purchased, and built by adults, that maybe they could have gone the extra mile and included the comma, and if you just want to play with it as a kid, just leave it off. It's LEGO, but including the option would have been really nice, so that is a bit of a downside for the minifigure to me. I do also have to bring up the helmet holes, and no, I'm not going to complain about this as much as some other folks on YouTube might, but what I will say is that on the side of the helmet, and this is an issue with pretty much all of the clones and not just Captain Rex, they have the standard molded hole, which is present on the actual design of the Clone Trooper helmets, and then they have an extra molded hole on the top to allow you to stick accessories in, which is great. I love that you can now stick accessories into Phase 2 helmets, but it's very weird to me that they didn't just take advantage of this hole here and just move this line up, mess with the proportions a little bit, and just make that the actual hole. I don't know, just feels kind of weird having there be two holes where accessories clip into. Not a huge deal, but definitely something that I do feel was done a little bit better in previous iterations of the character. Still, this is an immensely detailed minifigure. It is very special and cool to get arm printing this detailed on a minifigure coming in a standard retail set, and I'm a big fan of how the overall look and feel turned out. On another note, one of the major criticisms levied against this minifigure, at least when it was first revealed, was that the patch right there in black is a little bit too large compared to the animated series counterpart. Now, I will note that in the Ahsoka TV show, when Captain Rex appeared in live action in a flashback dream sequence, the patch was actually that large, so maybe LEGO was working off of that concept art and that's why it was so big, or maybe LEGO just messed up and got very lucky. I genuinely don't really know, but it is still kind of weird how that is a little bit bigger than I feel like it should be. Not a huge deal, but again, a lot of funny things about this figure that don't necessarily put it higher on the list. In case you're curious, here is what Captain Rex looks like with the black comma on, and yeah, I'm gonna be honest, he does look a lot better with it on. This is using an official LEGO comma that I bought off of Bricklink, which was previously used for clones in the past. It is thankfully not super expensive, only cost me around $10, which I guess for a single piece of fabric is pretty expensive, but not as bad as I thought it would be, and I feel like it does improve the look and feel of the minifigure a lot. While I do understand the need for LEGO to keep things linear and to keep things consistent throughout the entire product line, I really do wish that at least for just the UCS Venator, they did a little bit extra above that just to allow big-time collectors to be able to actually display minifigs the way they want, especially with an adult-oriented set. And now that we know that Captain Rex is coming in a set next year, that's a perfect set, a microfighter, to not include the comma. That's the perfect set, a microfighter, to not include the comma, which is why I really do feel like it potentially would have been better to actually include it in the minifigure, and that's why it's only at number 5. For our next minifigure, we have another character from LEGO Star Wars which was really hitting it out of the park with minifigure designs this year. This is Boba Fett, who comes in the Boba Fett mech set, one of the smallest sets that came out for the wave this year. Now, despite this coming in one of the smaller sets, they spared almost no expense when creating this minifigure, right down to printing on the sides of the arms and a fully detailed new headpiece, which we're going to take a look at in a second. Now, really the only major complaint that I do have about this figure is that technically Boba Fett is supposed to include a pauldron, but because of the fact that they included him in a mech, they chose not to include the fabric piece, which I do understand it would have conflicted with the mech design, but I'm hoping this will pave the way towards this exact minifigure being used in maybe a future LEGO Star Wars set coming out sometime in the future with the actual pauldron itself, because that would be really cool to get. Overall though, it is really nice to finally get a standard version of Boba Fett in his original trilogy outfit, not in the Book of Boba Fett armor, who actually has fully detailed arm printing and doesn't come in a massive set. And honestly, a big part of the reason as to why this is on this list is because in the past, previously, this version of Boba Fett, especially with the full arm printing, has typically been locked to some of the most expensive and largest LEGO Star Wars sets, the UCS Slave 1, Betrayal on Cloud City. But now finally, we're actually getting him as a minifigure in a smaller set, which is really fantastic because it allows people to have the best version of Boba Fett they have on the market today in a nice, cheap, and small set, which I am all for. Overall, the amount of detail and design on this figure is really fantastic. I love how you can see the tubes connecting his shoulder pauldrons to the wrist armor there. Just the amount of detail factored into this figure is really above and beyond. And that's why I feel that the combination of all these factors made him deserve a spot on the list. He's in a small set, meaning that a lot of people can get him if they want him, and he's fully detailed. You can even see the Mythosaur logo on the side of the shoulder there, with metallic silver behind it, showcasing some of the rust paneling coming off of that armor piece. It just looks so cool, and it's really great to finally get this as a really fully detailed minifigure with a custom headpiece, even printing on the back of the head to show his scars in a very nice and small set. And that's why this is on the list, but now we can move on to our number 3 pick. And coming in at our number 3 pick, we have a custom minifigure sculpt that has been created for one particular theme. This is Dr. Eggman from LEGO Sonic. Now, Dr. Eggman is a really nicely produced figure for a number of reasons. First of all, he is using almost completely customized minifigure elements, and yet still feels like he belongs in the LEGO system. Dr. Eggman is using the long legs introduced for Woody from Toy Story, but were recently used in the Avatar minifigures, which also came out this year, and is using the arms and hand pieces normally used for Hagrid from LEGO Harry Potter, who also similarly has a custom body sculpt. However, they have gone all out when depicting this character from Sonic with a completely custom brand new body piece with printing on the back and the front of the torso, capturing his very distinct rotund look and feel, as well as the very nicely molded features of the goggles, the eyes, and the mustache, making him one of the best produced LEGO minifigures that we have ever seen. This almost doesn't even count as a minifigure because of how wacky and wild he is, but I was gonna figure if big figs count, then he should count as well, because this is truly a LEGO minifigure. You put them together, the arms are attached via Technic pins, which is really funny, and you can twist the hands like so. The only thing that you can't move is the head, which is a little unfortunate, but I'm willing to take that trade-off because it is a very nicely molded head. Especially after the debacle of the pretty awful brick-built Eggman from the original LEGO Ideas Sonic set. There's really no way around that. They did their best making him brick-built, but you could only go so much with that. They were finally able to depict the character as a fully molded individual, and I feel like they went above and beyond when crafting the likeness for this character. It is so unique, it is so niche, it is so specialized, and that's why I feel like it deserves a higher spot on this list, because it is just so well produced. You can look at this immediately and see what character it is supposed to represent, because LEGO went above and beyond when crafting the shaping of the character itself. But now I think it's time to move on to number 2. Alright, and coming in at number 2, we return to the MCU with Vision from the Avengers Tower. Now, this version of Vision is surprisingly the only version of Vision we have ever gotten that was not based off of inaccurate concept art, mostly regarding inaccuracies in the Mind Stone on the forehead, but also right down to the costume itself. Consequently, it resulted in pretty much the most accurate version and most detailed version of Vision we have ever gotten as a LEGO minifigure. The cape is a vinyl material that actually is transparent near the bottom, representing Vision's very ethereal look for the cape itself, and maybe even representing what he looks like phasing through the walls of a building. And overall, this is one of the most uniquely detailed minifigures that we ever got for this year in 2023. Both legs are fully transparent, making it one of the most intricately detailed minifigures of the year, and I really love the way the facial expression was done, and really the only thing holding this figure back is the lack of continued printing along the side of the head. We have gotten continued printing along the sides of heads before for certain minifigures like Tournament Zane, Lobot from Star Wars, as well as a couple of other different ones. Even with LEGO City, we got minifigures with printing on the side for hearing aids, so I definitely feel like they should have invested the extra budget budget and technology to allow it to be printed around the entire sides of the head, but even without that, it is still a really good looking figure. The head is fully teal for the first time, which is really interesting, and if you rotate the body around, here's what the back looks like with very excellent printing done for the minifig itself. Overall though, the real standout accessory for this figure is the fact that both legs are transparent blue, which is really rare for a minifigure. It is actually special. It's something that LEGO recently was able to do with technology all the way back in Chima with 2015 and LEGO Ninjago in 2015 with the Ghost. They would occasionally do one or both legs being transparent, but it's only started becoming common in recent years, and this is a really great usage of it, showcasing how he actually is phasing through the wall and actually being born for the first time. Overall, this is a really intricate version of the character, and one thing I really do appreciate is the copyright LEGO Group logo is actually placed on an area of the cape which is not actually ever going to be visible right down the middle, showcasing that the designers really tried to go the extra effort to really make this one feel very special and feel very authentic to the source material. It is without a doubt the best minifigure that came out of the Avengers Tower set, and is only unseated by one other minifigure on this list. And coming in at our number 1 best licensed minifigure of 2023 is Moon Knight from the Marvel Collectible Minifigure series. Now, Moon Knight is one of the most detailed LEGO minifigures that has ever been produced, honestly, in general. He has dual molded legs with printing on the sides of the legs, printing on the sides of the arms, a brand new cowl component, a new weapon component, when honestly they completely did not need to make one and they could have totally just used a Ninjago component. But they really went above and beyond with making this character, even coming up with 2 different versions of his look, one with the mask on and one with the mask revealing his face completely possessed by the spirit of Khonshu there, and I just love how expertly detailed these minifigures are. Moon Knight alongside Wolverine was one of the main figures used to market the Marvel Collectible Minifig series, and for good reason, because he is one of the most detailed figures we've ever gotten. I just really love the way this minifigure was produced. When Moon Knight was first coming out, fans were clamoring for a Moon Knight minifigure, and we finally have gotten one in the form of Mark Spector here, with we actually have 2 different versions, this one, and we even got a Mr. Knight variant as well, who was admittedly a lot less detailed, but it's really cool to even get 2 different versions of the same character. Now, if we actually go ahead and take off some of the components here, we can take a look behind the mask and see exactly what he's packing under the cape. There's so much detail, even for the back of the torso, which normally isn't even seen whatsoever because you do have the cape covering it. They really spared no expense in the detail of this minifigure. You've got little moon-shaped crescent icons on the sides of the arms, which is accurate to the TV show. Even little Moon Knight-shaped crescent pieces on the legs themselves, so he's really fully outfitted in the overall look and feel he should be. And one thing that I really appreciate about this figure is that they went above and beyond with creating new pieces and accessories when they totally didn't even necessarily need to. They could have used the headpiece from the Rogue from one of the older collectible minifig series, but they chose to make a new piece because it would be more accurate. Same with the weapon. They could have used a Ninjago Samurai X horn element, but they chose to make a new piece just because it would have been that much more accurate to screen. And because of that attention to detail, I feel like this figure deserves the number 1 spot of the best 2023 licensed LEGO minifigure. Of course, this may be a controversial opinion. I know people have their thoughts on the quality of the Moon Knight show. Personally, I liked it, but I know many did not. It is one of the more controversial ones that came out of Disney Plus, where it's typically most people either love the shows or don't like them, but this one was one where I definitely see people online. Some people really love it, some people really hate it, so it is what it is. But show aside, you cannot deny that this minifigure is excellently produced. I just love the overall design of the character itself. It looks so good, and I also love how we got that alternate facial expression as well, which really sealed the deal for me in terms of making this the best minifigure for 2023 when it comes to licensed figures.
Alright, and with that, we have summed up my top 10 favorite licensed minifigures of 2023. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. What are your favorite licensed minifigs of the year? Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this countdown, and stay tuned because there's so much more to come. I will be going through different price brackets of the best sets that LEGO released this year, so stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.